everybody, it's Justin with Lawn Therapy, and today I'm very excited. I've got Josh Mercer from 3 Wide Brewing as my guest. Josh, why don't you tell us more about 3 Wide Brewing, and we'll kind of go over why you're here today in a little bit.
Yeah, cool. Glad to be here. 3 Wide is a brewery that kind of grew from another project that three of us that work there started before at Rabbit Hole Brewing, and
And that was in Justin, Texas?
Yeah,
Is that
it's
right?
in Justin.
Yeah.
And man, it just turned into something huge and wonderful, and just a ton of fun to be a part of.
Yeah.
So
Now, you didn't start off in brewing. You started off in, I believe it was like heavy industrial. Is that correct? Or
yeah,
tell me more about. Tell me the whole path. Like, go ahead and just open up and tell me the whole path of how you got here. I think it's interesting.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, after my first kind of regular job that anybody out of high school gets, I got put squarely into logistics for Kroger Distribution Center.
Okay.
Actually ended up somehow managing the operations for a night shift over at the Kroger Distro Center off of 377 and Kroger Drive. I believe it's still there.
Yeah, no, it's still there. It's a huge building.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Keller, so I know those places really well. I haven't lived there in a long time, but it was around the corner from where I grew up, and I would actually go see my parents on the way home from work after a shift and all that. It's kind of crazy. But at some point you get to a point where you go, I don't like the job or the pay or the people or whatever it ends up being. For me, it was more of I just need another challenge, because it was day in, day out. Yeah, bring in all the groceries, bring in all of the meat, work with the guys, make sure we get the orders out to all the different Krogers that are here within a radius of essentially 5 states that touch Texas.
Sure.
And so I started looking for other things, and I just kind of fell into a data analyst job at a government contractor called DynCorp. And had a lot of fun working there, doing more logistics things. But eventually, through different contract moves that we ended up, we would close a contract for Haiti, and then we'd open one up in Afghanistan or something like that. Eventually, I ended up getting to a contract where there was so much less work, and I was so efficient at completing it before noon that I started looking for hobbies.
Right.
And I'd always kind of loved craft beer. Craft beer had really kind of started making its way through Texas at that point. I'm not going to try to pinpoint the year it was, but probably somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 2007 or something like that. And somehow discovered that you can make your own beer at home.
Yeah.
So in looking for a hobby, I found one that just naturally connected with the things that I like, as we do. And it just blossomed from there, as a lot of homebrewers do. They get to do it for a couple of years, and eventually they go, man, I could do this professionally, and started looking to try to break in. Ended up breaking in at a new brewery startup and all of that, and it just kind of snowballs from there. So eventually I end up working for the guys Matt and Tom over at Rabbit Hole, and the rest is kind of history. So we've been together basically ever since first year or two that Rabbit Hole was open. From that point on until now, Matt and Tom and I have been working together and just trying to create a big, beautiful project. So
Very good. Very good. So the three of you started off in another brewery, and you guys are still the same 3 guys to this day. Very cool. So I like to ask, because I have friends that do their own brewing. You got to tell me your worst. Like, what's the worst thing that happened to you? Like, whether it be an explosion, whether it be, I don't know, you went temporarily blind. I mean, what happened? Like, tell me, or were you had no problems? But I mean, do you have any, like, when you were brewing at home, did you have any experiences where something just didn't go right with the recipe?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that nothing ever went wrong. I was probably fortunate in that, something catastrophic never went wrong. But, I've had my share of crazy fermentations just completely coating the container that they're in. We would use chest freezers so that we could maintain the fermentation temperatures. and you would just have explosions inside where, yeast and beer and everything is just completely coating the inside of that. Fun things like that. I've had a couple of what they call bottle bombs, where the pressure ends up building inside the bottle because you're, carbonating inside with sugar and a little bit of yeast that's left over.
Yep.
But luckily nothing terrible happened. I certainly have buddies who have much better stories than I do when it comes to that. So
Yep. I had a buddy whose father it wasn't the same type of brewery, but he made his own wine and that stuff. If you got that wrong, sometimes that made for some interesting stories later. So yeah, I believe. Tell me why. I mean, 3 wide. I know it's a racing term. You guys are up by the Texas Motor Speedway. Why? So why 3 wide? Just go ahead and go over like what's the name behind that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll spill the beans. We actually joke with people that we tried to get the street name. We tried so long to get the name of the street changed because we wanted to call it 3 wide. It's called 3 wide because it was on 3 wide drive. All the roads. I hate to burst everybody's bubble. All the roads around Texas Motor Speedway are racing theme named.
Right.
However, we took that and we kind of ran with it. So, if you go and you look at our website or if you look at any of our social media pages and things like that, we play a lot with 3-eyed guys. I actually see one on your shelf over there. I'm glad that he made it.
I took it seriously. Took it seriously.
So he's our hop monster and he's our main character, but all of our characters have some kind of play on the word 3, and they. It's just kind of when you're looking at it, how do we cater to everybody and bring, make everybody feel comfortable, but, still lean a little bit into the racing thing, lean a little bit out of it. We want everybody to feel like they're welcome there. Yeah. So when you're brainstorming that, I wasn't in the initial talks to the brainstorming of it, but I know that the story goes, okay, well, 3, what is weird about 3? And then you just snowball into, well, aliens. Aliens have 3 eyes, right?
Sure.
And we just went with that, and it's just been a lot of fun to kind of play on that riff,
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I know when I was there, I was impressed with how clean it was. Like, I mean, the floor, everything was pristine. Like, I was really impressed. It was the lighting was amazing. Like, you guys have light everywhere. And I went there, and by the way, I had a Brazilian hot dog. I've never had a Brazilian hot dog in my life. I don't know what was in that. I just ate it. It was absolutely delicious. I know you said your chef is top notch, which you normally don't think of that at a brewing place, but I will tell you were dead on. The food we all had like excellent food. And I think you guys tell me more about your food, like, and how it's prepared, and more about your chef there just for a moment, because I think it's kind of impressive.
Yeah. Our chef, he has a pretty good pedigree. He actually used to be the executive chef for Aramark. And for those of you, who aren't in the know about Aramark, they are the caterers for people like the Dallas Cowboys or all of American Airlines Center. That is who does the food service. And so when you have the guy who was running that entire thing, that entire operation, he eventually comes and he's doing his own thing, you're going to expect that he really knows how to get the most out of what the space and the opportunities that he's given.
Yeah.
He is, you mentioned a Brazilian hot dog. He actually is of Brazilian descent, which is really cool because he gets to, kind of infuse those flavors in there. It was funny when we had our Christmas food special, it was a picanha with chimichurri sauce. And so, how many breweries are putting out a Christmas or a Thanksgiving, dinner special that you can pick up and it's all ready to heat.
Right.
That features a Brazilian cut of beef. I mean, that's crazy. And it's because Roger is who Roger is.
Right.
He has a tiny, tiny kitchen and he serves a ton of people every single week. And I'm just amazed every time he gets to do that. I don't want to put too many words into his mouth, but he does everything from scratch. He never freezes anything, and he's doing it out of like a 600 square foot kitchen. It's tiny.
Right.
I'm shocked at how he gets as much done as he does.
It was fantastic. It was really good. But I know that you guys also combined. Doesn't he like mix all of his own meats right there on site? I think he makes. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so all of his sausages, all of his hot dogs and things like that, they're custom blends, and he stuffs them all and cures them all if they require curing, all there on site.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's as much of a scratch kitchen as you can possibly get, just off in the little corner in the brewery.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
And you've got I know like in Texas, we love our speakeasies because I mean, I don't know if a lot of people outside of Texas know this, but Texas in the 20s, I think it was the 20s, I believe, in the 30s, and hopefully I'm getting the right time, but their speakeasies were very popular, correct? I mean, maybe that was all over the country, but I know in Texas, they were very big, and that was kind of a big thing. Like, I know there was a huge one in Arlington that had underground tunnels, and I mean, poker tables, exit tunnels for people when the cops came and stuff like that. But tell me more about your little speakeasy room.
yeah, we had to have a nod back to Rabbit Hole Brewing. So we have a fake bookshelf. All of the pictures and the trinkets and the books and everything are donated by our owner's family. They actually came out and put everything up on there once the door was finished as well. So, I mean, it was before the opening party. Everybody was participating. I mean, everybody from the family was participating to get every little piece in place exactly what it needed to go. That bookshelf is on a center post hinge. And if you press the right button, which I won't tell everybody what it is,
right,
it will make sense when you figure it out. But if you press the right button on that shelf, if you press the right book, then it will actually swing open and you can walk into our private area. We have it for meetings and small gatherings and really anything else that you can think of where you want it a little more sequestered and a little more private. It's also quieter in there too because the ceiling is lower. There's four walls that you have. That room is called the Rabbit Hole.
Right.
So it's a nod to speakeasies. It's a nod to where we had our brewery before, all that sort of stuff. And I'm not trying to pitch, what all goes on in there, but it's cool that we have taps. It's cool that we have our humidor in there. It's cool that we have our wine storage in there. I mean, it's just like you were saying, it's a speakeasy sort of thing going on there just in the middle of a brewery, and you wouldn't know it if you're just looking at the bookshelf that's next to our cold room.
Yeah, you would not. No, until you brought me over there and showed it to me. And it's very quaint. I mean, it's like for a small group, it's perfect. Like like you said, it's a little quieter, a little more calm, and just it was an interesting little idea. And I thought it was kind of cool that you kind of involved some Texas history there at the brewery. Tell me more about your craft. And I mean your craft brewery. Like, tell me more about like what sets you apart, why yours is different, what you do at your place. I mean, it's I was impressed by how you did things. I was impressed by how clean it was. I was impressed by the flavors. I was impressed by everything. So tell me more about your specialty and how you handle your things over there.
And so we started out from the very beginning saying that we were going to specialize and guarantee that if you have lagers, IPAs, or what we call wood aged instead of just barrel aged, that gives us a little more flexibility. If you are looking for those on our menu, they will be world class. Those are the things that we specialize in. The focus on those primarily allows us the opportunity from the very beginning to go after and work with vendors who have extremely high standards when it comes to ingredients and things like that, and that's not to say that the vendors that we don't work with aren't, of similar quality, but I can guarantee you that we are using a higher quality product simply because of our mission statement, right? We are going to have world-class lagers. You can't do that if you don't have world-class ingredients where everything starts from.
Right.
So, luckily, everybody on our crew, and we have a ton of experience, and I am fiercely loyal to our crew because they are so good at what they do. I won't mention everybody by name just in case anybody didn't want to be mentioned on purpose, but just the entire crew, there's 7 of us, and every single one of them is dedicated to doing everything perfectly correct. And if there is a problem, then we address it. If there is a flaw, then that beer doesn't get released. I mean, we have a policy of no crap on tap. So And that drives everything that we do. You mentioned the cleanliness there too. I mean, we are fanatical about cleaning because if you don't start with a clean environment, then you are not giving the beer the best chance possible. So I mean, it's just kind of the thing that makes us stand out, I guess, would be the just huge attention to detail on those points that I mentioned there. I'm sure I'm missing some points as well, but I mean, everybody is fully bought in. Everybody is working towards the same goal. And I don't know if I've been around another brewery where every single person was exactly the same amount of laser focus, laser intensity as everyone else on the rest of the crew for the same goal. So.
Yeah, it was impressive. I mean, if anyone wants a tour, I would highly recommend it. I don't know if you charge for that. Doesn't matter whether
they're free.
They're free.
Yeah,
I would
you can request them anytime you pop by. Yeah.
I mean, groups should absolutely do that. Like, why not? Like, I would if it was another company, I would say go through it just to see how you do things. It's very interesting. The other thing I thought was interesting is when I was there, the variety of people. I thought there was because you guys don't just do if you're not a beer person, which you guys also make your own spirits, correct? And I think, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I believe you got some other things coming in the future. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So we are working on spirits now. We're working on RTDs or ready to drink cocktails. That'll be part of the spirits program, but it'll be kind of its own monster. I mean, we're making our own wine every once in a while. We're making our own cider. We will probably dabble in THC stuff once the dust kind of settles. We won't get into the politics of that situation until that actually happens. But we are we're redefining sort of the initial term that we called ourselves. We were going to be a craft brewery, but we're defining ourselves now as a craft beverage company. So that entails basically evaluating everything instead of looking at one thing and going, well, no, that's not quite for us. It gives us this opportunity to say yes. So right now we are definitely jumping into spirits whole hog. There is no looking back. We are fully invested in that. We're fully invested in knocking out RTDs as well. We're fully invested in continuing the beer side, and then there's more stuff coming down the pike there that will be interesting. I'm not quite ready to talk about, but
sure,
it's going to be really fun. So
yeah, it's really a neat place that is. I'd highly recommend. And the way I think it's kind of interesting how you and I even came to be friends is that you actually are a client of ours, and so I didn't know you. You're a client. And I believe IMA and John went over there to interview you and stuff like that on some of the, because I looked at pictures of your yard, the lawn looks phenomenal. I hope you're happy, but your lawn looks really good. I looked at pictures just this morning. I'm like, it looks fantastic. I want to make sure that it looks good. I'm like, it better look good. And it does. But I am absolutely at heart, I understand there's a certain need for certain fertilizers, certain pest controls, and certain pesticides, and even weed control. I understand that. But I will always lean towards being as natural as I can. I know that one day, I'm 99% sure that one day I'm going to be a regenerative farmer. I'm going to literally, my wife rolls her eyes, but I'm going to be a regenerative farmer one day. I'm like, that's the direction I'm going to go because I believe in it that much, and I'm going to get into it. It's going to happen. But when they were talking about you and how you produce your beer, it kind of came up about soil. It kind of came up about the regeneration of you use regenerative farmers for your malts and for your beers and for your corns, and so that's kind of how this whole conversation. So if somebody's out there thinking, why would somebody on Lawn Therapy interview a brewery? It's because the soil. It's soil is what's connected us. As I'm taking care of your soil at your property, and yet the soil absolutely contributes to the flavor of your beer if it's done correctly. And so maybe let's go over that a little bit. Like when you're selecting your rye, your corn, and you guys have all kinds of choices, and you guys can go by price. And I don't think you do. I think you go by what's right. And so tell me more about that.
Yeah, luckily we do have the freedom to make what I would consider the right choice rather than the compromised choice. If you look on the beer side of things, to start with, we work with a company called Proximity Malt, and they are, I think they're the first in the country to be a new, generational maltster. There's a lot of history, especially in Europe, for maltsters who have, survived generations of family and all of that. And there wasn't really anything that was carrying over, except for maybe Brice in the United States. Proximity decided to come in, and then from the very beginning, immediately start going and working with USDA, working with, I'm not sure, I remember the other departments, but they started working with farmers through grant programs and things like that, through agricultural schools, and working on regenerative farming almost from the beginning. And we initially started working with Proximity because we love their malt. It's a really good price. It's a really, really good quality. And we didn't really have to make any compromises there. And then they officially launched their regen program. And I'm looking at it going, okay, well, I've watched Clarkson Farm, right? I worked with a buddy whose wife was, regenerative farming her 75-acre farm or something like that with all her goats and then her chickens. And then she would put some legumes in the ground and things like that.
Yep.
And so, I kind of understand it a little bit. And then here I go get to work with a supplier that we really like their product. And they're offering something not really with any price increase, but with a massive environment impact. The farms that they, especially in Colorado, but also in Delaware, that they work with, are turned over so many times just to provide the malt that the brewers need in the country. So the fact that they're looking at this and going, okay, well, how do we regenerate our crops and our acreage to make sure that it's super healthy and it's going to give us the best yields and all of this, it also tends to have a benefit of, making the soil extremely healthy. I just, without obviously being an expert in that, because I'm a brewer and I'm not a farmer, I really, really appreciate the fact that they are trying to push the envelope and make sure that we're taking care of the land that we are taking from.
Correct.
I think that's a big, important step. If we don't take care of the land, then it's not going to take care of us when we need it.
Agreed. It's like I said, I use products that some of these guys would maybe turn their nose up, but I always lean towards being more organic. And it's really not even, the term organic is kind of, I think, slowly, I don't say going away, but changing, because regenerative is not necessarily organic, but it is actually, I think, in many ways better than organic because it's very natural. And I love regenerative farming. And it is the soil, but the articles I've read, and I was going to ask if you found this to be true, but the flavor and the boldness of some of the beers that come from the corn or the barley are richer and deeper, because when you look at the nutritional value of the soil, the products, whether it be corn, barley, whether it be a cow, beef, the nutritional value of those animals and those plants is in many cases double, if not 10 times the amount of nutritional value that you would get from, like, for cattle, for example. When you go to a feedlot and just all those cattle and their hormones and shots and standing and eating feed, the nutritional value of that steak is a fraction of what it would be if it came off of a regenerative farm. And so everything I've read says that when you get, you drink a craft beer or a craft spirit from a regenerative farm, we're not trying to say that beer is healthy necessarily. Hey, drink more beer. It's from a regenerative farm. It's good, but it is going to have more nutrition and it's going to have deeper and bolder flavors. I didn't know if you've experimented that or felt that or seen that or been able to even tell. Some people say they can't tell, but that's kind of everything I've read.
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think that personally I can tell the difference. Somebody might tell me that I'm crazy, but we crack a bag open, and before we send it through the process, we'll throw it in our mouths and chew on it like granola.
Right.
We could put it in yogurt and have it for breakfast. It's that tasty, and that goes for all malts. But that was the first thing that I started looking for, was a flavor difference when I brought in a bag of that versus the bag of normal malt that we would be using for brewing, and I can definitely tell a difference. The fact that I can tell a positive difference, the fact that I have a story that I can tell about the positive difference that they're making, it kind of combines to be a great, fun little extra story that we can tell people. I believe that I can tell a difference, and I think that the flavors are just a little more amped. There's more aromatics. There's more, maybe a little more chew to it. When it comes to the nutritional content, as brewers, that's obviously not something that we're 100% concerned with. But I will say that the way that the malt performs is either as good or a touch better in terms of the process of brewing as well. Whether it be something that clarifies a little more, or whether it's something that promotes head retention a little more. There's just a little bit more of something. And that might sound silly to say, because we're talking about what we consider to be a better process, but I think that there is a difference for sure.
Well, and I think isn't really that all it takes, because when you're trying to build a company and you want people to get behind what you're doing and what you're selling and what you're producing, you have to feel that. And if you feel it, it's real. Like, I really believe that. Like, if you feel it and you're like, hey, maybe somebody else can't tell a difference in one beer from the next, but if you feel it and you believe it, it permeates through everything you do. Like, and I think you said that earlier that your people are laser focused and super loyal. Well, I think it's because of your story. I think it's because you really believe that. And I think there's some truth to it. And I think we can statistically prove it, but even if we can't, there's something to that because of how you feel about that, and and I think people see you and how excited you get and how happy you are about the different, that you're bringing in good, quality grains. And I think they get behind that. And if they're like, why do you work there? Or why don't you work for some other brewer? Or I work here because I believe in what I do, right? Just like I work, I work here because I believe in what I do. I like helping people's lawns. I like helping people protect their homes. I actually genuinely like what I do. And that's also why I'm going to go into regenerative farming one day, because I'm going to love what I do then. But it's one of those things where I think one thing I noticed when I was there is I truly felt it. Like, I felt the difference. I felt, and sometimes just the energy, like the energy in your place was really good. It was a really good, positive place. And I think that goes back to the leadership, right? And I think, so how do you get that competitive edge? I think not the part of the regenerative farming is really neat, but I think it helps you really tell your story. And I think because people buy into a story, right? I think that, like, hey, it's a craft brew, try it, drink it, you'll like it. Not a story, just maybe true, but we've got enough of those. But I think it's your story that really separates you, and I think you're very proud of it. And you should be. You should be very proud of it. But tell me more about that story. Like, I know you kind of have like a story behind the brew, or your what you do and stuff like that. Can you tell me more about that? I know we talked about that the other day when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we just happen to be a entire group of people that believe that we are making the best beer in DFW, at least. And that's no offense to my buddies that work at other breweries.
Right.
We just believe that our beer is a touch better than everybody else's. And because I think that we have complete buy-in, everybody comes to work every day believing that the next thing that we're putting out is the best version of that thing. It just kind of radiates out to everybody else. So clearly, I mean, you're feeling that, so we're doing something right.
Yeah.
But even if it was only us that felt that way, we would still feel the same kind of vibe. I don't think that would change. That's the difference that I see in our crew is, well, I don't think we're faking it. We're not lying to ourselves saying, oh yeah, no, we're definitely the best. We actually believe it.
Yeah.
And we're allowed to make the choices that we believe influence, continuing to put out the best products. We don't have to make any compromises that would actually impact the best beer coming out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like you were telling me about your ownership and that they've allowed you to make those purchases, because I'm sure a lot of times they're like, hey, find the cheapest corn you can, find the cheapest barley you can, the cheapest malt that you can find. And that wasn't the case with you guys. You said, no, what do you think is going to work best for what you want to make? And if you're truly going to make the best spirit beer in the world, then what do I need? And you use the products, correct? I mean, they told you not to skimp, where a lot of people, they choose a less expensive product, correct?
Yeah, no, this is perfect time to, name drop Helen and Roger. Hands down, I would say this if they were here in the room or if they weren't, it doesn't matter. Hands down, the best ownership that I have worked with ever.
And they're to California, correct?
They're in California. They have business here in Texas. In fact, the building next door to ours is another business that they own. When we were talking about, what the ingredients were going to be and the ideas that we had, they never once told us that we were crazy. They never once said, "Oh, that sounds a little too expensive. Maybe pull it back a little bit." They had the same vision from the very beginning, before we had any of this vision, that they were going to be the best brewery. They were going to own the best brewery in DFW. And if, through our reputation and through our, just continuing to grow, extends to the best brewery in Texas, they will be perfectly happy with that. They are as proud, if not prouder, than everybody else that works there on the production floor. And that's something that is very, very cool to be a part of. Again, I will say it, this is the best ownership I've ever worked with. Helen and Roger are fantastic people. They believe in us. They have every belief that this is the best brewery, bar none.
And I believe, so it's a California couple, own some businesses. I believe the business they've got here in Texas, I want to say in the oil field industry, is like the message.
I know it's construction.
Okay,
I haven't, dove, terribly deep into it,
Right.
but I know there's a lot of industrial, heavy civil construction type parts and things like that. But
Sure.
beyond that, we'll get Helen and or Roger over if you're interested in talking about that one. Let them speak for
And
themselves.
so what do you ever ask them though? Like, well, all right, so they're from California. They've got a large company here in Texas, and they decided like, hey, we want to get into the brewing business. I mean, how did that happen?
I was part of Rabbit Hole Brewing kind of when this whole thing started. They've always loved beer, as far as I know, and they were interested in having their own brand, and they were going to contract Rabbit Hole for a brand of beer that they were going to sell on their own. And once Rabbit Hole had to close, sadly, they decided, you know what? We love this even more than we thought we did. Hopefully I'm not putting words in their mouths.
Right.
And they decided to just build a brewery from the ground up. So that's, the short little elevator pitch of, how they got involved. They found a beer that they loved and got connected with us, went through that process. Unfortunately, we at Rabbit Hole couldn't supply that because we needed to close, but then they brought us all back for the brewery that they ended up opening anyway. So ultimately, I think they probably got what they were hoping for.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, well, I know. Yeah, I've actually was at the Rabbit Hole once, just one time. That was in Justin before it obviously closed, and so I didn't realize you were making that. Until obviously I met you. But on the backside of when all this is done, so I'm asked this because one, I heavily believe in composting. We make our own soil, and I will, much like you, I'm going to say that I'm very passionate that I feel like there is nobody, and I mean nobody, that makes a better soil than we do. Like our soil, I sat down with two, A&M scientists and a, agronomist, but also a composter. And we sat down and I made what I think is the absolute best soil for North Texas, again, because the soil in Houston is completely different than here. The soil in East Texas, far higher acidic value, and even West Texas, it gets different. But in DFW, this whole area, and probably within an hour plus radius of this, the soil is very lacking, and so our soil is excellent. And if you can only do one thing to your lawn, I like when people do lawn treatments as well, but I would say do the top dressing because it's just fantastic. And the composting is a massive part of that, and it has to compost at the right temperature, the right time. And it's my favorite thing that I do. You guys also, I believe, every time you get done with what I want to say is the mash, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me about that. So once it leaves, so eventually you use the corn, barley for what it's needed, and then it exits the building. And then where does it go? Tell me where that goes from there.
Yeah, we have farmers. They're both named Sal. Sal the older and Sal the younger. They definitely don't. I need to get to the bottom of why they don't like this, but they do not like Sal Jr. and Sal Sr. So they're just Sal and Sal. They're our farmer partners. Anybody who's familiar with the brewery understands, man, it is tough if you do not have a farmer to take away your spent grain.
Sure.
So when you're done with your mash, if you're on the brewing side, you have your wort, which is sugar water that you've separated from the grain. On the spirits side, at least in bourbon and rye and things like that, typically you will pull out all of your alcohol in the still, and then you will send that entire amount that is in the still over to a tote that the farmer will then take. they have different purposes for the farmer. On the beer side, there is a ton of protein left in the grain after we're finished getting what we want out of it. For a farmer who has cows like Sal and Sal do, that's perfect. He breeds Black Angus for sure. Last time I talked to you, he was thinking about another breed that I can't remember, so I'm going to move on. His cows absolutely love this grain. There's a ton of sweetness left. There's a ton of carbs. There's a ton of protein. But the protein is super important. So especially when you're growing, healthy young cows.
Yeah.
And you're selling them to other people who are using them for various reasons. There is about 18% protein left in this grain for the brewing process, which is crazy. We give it to him for free because we have no other use for it, and we want it to go to some sort of use without just going down the drain or into the dumpster or wherever else. And so, it's just kind of it's put back into the soil essentially through means. Obviously, we can all kind of extrapolate how that happens. On the spirit side, I think it's very interesting because we actually ferment with the grain and the liquid together. So most people who understand how beer works, that's kind of a no-no. You don't want any grain in there because you're going to get a ton of acidity and you're going to get a ton of tannins from the husks that are on the grain. But with corn and rye, you don't have those sorts of things. So we want all of the flavor, and then we give it to the farmer. He then uses it to actually finish his stock. So what he's looking for there is more of a carb load, which is cool because corn has more of a carb load than barley does at that point in the process. I have noticed his coats on his cows are almost as shiny as like the best purebred dog that's running around AKC. It's really cool. He actually, it's a fun story I like to tell. I believe that we talked about it a little bit when we were up at the brewery, but man, he's got some of the friendliest cows. And I don't know what Sal was thinking. Maybe he thought that I would just get a kick out of this. I've been around cows long enough to understand that they're, pretty powerful guys, but he brought me into the cage and he was letting me meet his bull, his 2,800-pound bull. And he was telling me, oh, yeah, he loves to get scratches on his ears and his chin. And what I didn't know is that Sal was placing me between the fence and his bull, who was leaning on me 100% of his weight as I was giving him scratches. Anyway, that it's just a fun story that I like to tell because Sal, is really, really cool guy.
I'm sure he was
also has a great sense of humor, apparently.
Yeah. I grew up on a farm, and we used to have what we called the city kids out. The town kids came out and on the farm, and all kinds of jokes were played. It was, and I won't get into that because I'm sure people will lose favor on me for telling you some of the things I did. But things that I knew to not do, the town kids did not know, and so they fell into the traps constantly, and it was usually pretty funny.
Oh, he got me pretty good, and I would definitely not consider myself an amateur, out in the field. So,
yep.
But I was unsuspecting, though. That cow, super friendly. To all 2,800 pounds is leaning on me and the fence. It was funny. You could just see a smirk and a twinkle in his eye. He was like, I got him.
It's a big. You're not moving that animal. 2,800 pounds. You're not moving that animal.
No.
So, have you ever had a large horse or a large bull step on you, but just trying to get their foot up? You better know what you're doing. Like, look, you have to get in that farrier position, bend their leg.
Yep.
But getting that foot off, if you don't know what you're doing, you're there for a while. Like, it's not going to move. So it's quite painful.
Right.
But yeah, I love that you guys. It's basically everything that you guys use that is going to get reused or it's got a purpose. So if you think about it, I'm again big composter. I love recycling. I like recycling soils. We use a lot of trees, a lot of anything that you can, it's organic matter. We'll recycle it and turn it into soil. We're going to let that break down. We get the right heat, just like you. There's so many I shouldn't say maybe commonality, but there's so many similarities, not commonalities, but similarities between brewing and soil and composting because, we like grains, you like grains. Like we love alfalfa for our compost. It's fantastic. You guys, and again, but also the heat, you have to get, your brew or when you're doing your thing, you got to get to a certain temperature. which I don't even know what it is. What do you normally have to get your grains up to, if I can ask?
For malted barley, it's about 150 degrees Fahrenheit.
How long? How long do you have to hold that?
About an hour. If you hold that with the liquid that's in there with the grain.
And then what's the process? So you get it to 150, hold it for an hour, and that does what? Because I'm
So
not a brewer.
it's an enzyme process. So there are starches on the grain that'll be converted into sugars through the process of adding heat and time. Well, I guess you're not adding time, but if you're allowing it to sit for an amount of time, those starches will then be converted into sugars by the enzymes that are present once you get up to a certain temperature and they're activated.
Very good, very good. So, same with us. Like, we have to have that compost. They're called windrows. We've got to turn them, but they have to get to a certain temperature for them to kind of inoculate and cook everything, if you will, and break down, right? And so, I actually have a little composter in my backyard that we compost all of our food waste personally in my house. Like, we don't put anything in the trash. And this composter, I want to say, is a 40-gallon composter, so it's not that big, and we fill it every week. Not fill it to the brim, but we put food scraps. Can't put meat in there, but we put all of the rest of our food scraps in there, and we can't fill the thing up. It just keeps, because it keeps on breaking down. So that compost in there, and we turn it. It's got, you roll it, but it just continues to so stuff that starts off that's this large just keeps on breaking down. And I think I've had it now for 4 years. I've emptied it once. And that's it. And the soil that came out of there was spectacular, but everything was broken down. And you just keep on turning it, cooking it. But yeah, temperature is a very big thing. For example, we have to use, like in the soil I make, we have to use some type of manure. We have to. If you don't, there's another company that makes soil in town here that I just don't believe in it. It's not that I know they do, and that's great, but they use a lot of mushroom compost, and it doesn't get to the same octane. It doesn't get to the same temperature as, say, manure does. So you have to get the right temperature to do the right, to make all the magic happen inside the soil, just like beer, right? And if we don't get to that right temperature, then we see all kinds of problems with the soil. That's just it doesn't work out. Doesn't work out for us. So it's kind of like with you. I'm sure if you don't get the right temperature, if you don't get the right length, if you don't get the right everything, that beer, I would imagine, is going to turn out pretty skunky or pretty. Something's going to go wrong with it, I would imagine.
Yeah,
so.
we either won't get the efficiency that we need or the flavor. Yeah, all sorts of things can go wrong.
Yeah, and I apologize. Walk me through. When you're going through, I'm sure John, our guy that's doing this video, is gonna probably key in on your brewery, excuse me. But walk me through all the bins that were in there. I know that the vats. I'm sorry, vats. But walk me kind of through that whole chain that you guys go through, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so we'll start with the mash tun.
Mash tun.
Mash tun.
Tun.
TUN. There's a lot of translation over from German procedures and definitions and things like that. So some of the words will sound funny. Mashing is simply adding grain and hot water together, and that's the process that I described before, where we need those starches to be converted into sugars so that we can then separate the liquid that has basically sugar water off of it, add the hops into it, and move on with our process, and then leave the grain behind. So the first step is mashing. And then we will, there's a process called vorlaughing. That's a simple, fancy term for saying recirculate.
Okay.
And that will sort of homogenize the liquid so that we don't have any striations in the temperature of the full body of the grain. Once we do that, we will then take the sugar water off, leave the grain behind, and that's sort of where beer gets its iconic flavor from, because at that point we'll add to the sugar water, which is called wort.
Wort?
Wort, it's not like what you would have burned off on your skin. Another German term.
Yep.
For sugar water. We will add hops to it at that point, which is where beer gets its bitterness. Otherwise, it would kind of taste like almost unsweetened tea that you added a pack of Splenda to. That's where the flavor of the hops come through. That's where the bitterness of the hops come through.
I can interrupt. Can you grow hops in Texas?
There's maybe one variety, two varieties that can grow. It gets too hot, and then it doesn't cool down.
Yes,
is kind of the big thing. So in Willamette Valley, actually, where our hop supplier, we're going to select our hops, are they're in the mountains. It's arid. It's dry. It gets
The
really
Colorado or is it
hot. Willamette Valley is in Oregon.
Oregon? I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. And then Yakima Valley is the other main area where we get our stuff from, and that's in Washington.
Okay.
Those areas, like Colorado, really hot, but then the sun goes down and it goes back
Cools
to a pleasant.
Yeah.
It's not like in Texas where the sun goes down and it's still 97 degrees outside.
Right.
You're looking around going, how?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In Texas, we don't have that.
No.
So we can grow maybe 2 varieties, and they grow, tiny little hop cones, and the hop cones are normally, much, much bigger. So unfortunately, there's not a lot that we can get here on the beer side. On the spirit side, though, I'm assuming you're probably curious about the ingredients that we can get a lot from in Texas.
Absolutely.
Actually, 100% of our bourbon and rye is from Texas as far as the ingredients go.
Nice.
And that gives me an opportunity actually to talk a little bit about the company that we work with for our grains, for our spirits. Their company's name is Tex Malt.
Okay.
They actually started in Texas, in Fort Worth, because there was no maltster anywhere in Texas, but especially not in DFW. They are fantastic because they are only looking to work with Texas farmers.
Mm-hmm.
They also have the only portfolio that I've seen where there is only non-GMO as far as corn goes, which means that all of our bourbon and all of our rye is going to be non-GMO. If we wanted to put a certification on it, we could, because we are only using their grains. That sort of process is a little more foreign to me as far as the GMO goes, but I respect what I know it stands for.
Yeah.
So
I kind of joke with you now. You don't have to go over this, but you're originally you're a beer. I know you're going to make spirits, and you're very excited about your bourbon. I think is what you're most excited about, if I listen correctly. But deep down inside, you're a beer guy. I'm guessing, correct?
Yeah. I mean, that love will always be there. So,
What?
I mean, if you start out as a brewer, you can't let it go, right? I mean, we even take the stuff that we know from brewing and we apply it to our spirits. So, I mean, it's ingrained in what we're doing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you don't want to talk about this, you won't have to. I know you kind of started going down you may start using some of the THC stuff. Are you talking about like the hemp, or where you're going to start using maybe some hemp products? Is that what you're talking about? Or is it, and if you don't want to talk about that yet, because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, you don't have to, but is that kind of where you're looking at maybe some of the hemp products, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little early to talk about the specifics, but, just kind of as a broad overview, there's different aspects that we've kind of identified. So, some of the ones where it's the actual THC component that we're after, but some of the other ones that are really interesting for me are sort of the same kind of products where you're seeing these like these moon coffee type things, where they improve focus or they improve mobility or vascular performance or something like that. That I know of some of the drinks that are not necessarily energy drink kind of things, but they kind of fit in that category. Those are things that I'm interested in looking at for sure as well. Without tying us to a particular direction on the THC derived and the hemp derived products. Those are some of the categories that I know that we're definitely interested in looking at for sure.
Yeah, hemp is really an amazing product, and I actually know it. I don't smoke it, but I mean, if you want to knock yourself out, get crazy. I just don't. But I love actual hemp still. Like, you may go, why do you like it? But the product itself is amazing. Like, what the things you can do with hemp is crazy. Like, you can make it as a paper. It's paper. You can make clothes out of it. And then the clothes that you have are incredibly strong. Like, they're stronger than cotton. And so if I believe I've got the story right, the reason that hemp kind of went crazy at the very end, or why it kind of like, it really got bastardized. I mean, it was like, you couldn't use it, you couldn't sell it, it was turned into like a marijuana. But my understanding is that there was a guy that owned, and I can't remember his name, but he owned a very large newspaper paper mill, I believe, and he had forest. And he wanted to make paper, and he wanted to use his forest, and that's what he wanted to do. And what they realized is that hemp was actually a far better product than trees. And because when you cut down a tree to make paper, it takes you another 100 years, or it depends on what type of paper, what kind of tree, but it takes you another 50 years, 30 years, 100 years to grow that tree back before you can do that all over again. Where hemp, you literally can harvest that field every year, if not multiple times in 1 year. And so it was a better product. It made a better paper. It was more sustainable. Just everything was better. And he realized, oh my gosh, this is going to take over the world with paper. And he basically put out his propaganda to outlaw it. And that's literally, and so it was out of greed. It's out of greed and out of him wanting to sell paper from his forest. I believe I've got the story right. I know I'm close. I don't want to give, but it's kind of sad because I think there's a lot of purposes. I mean, you can go to, I don't know how our veterans use it or how people can make clothes out of it, but we couldn't even use it. I mean, it used to be a rope. Like if you were way back when, I mean, they made really awesome ropes. I have a hemp rope. The thing is incredible. It's like, I use a lot of the paracord, which is like, this stuff is amazing. Like you can use it for everything, but hemp is like paracord to me. It's incredibly strong. That rope is amazing, but they used to use it on ships. And then all of a sudden it was outlawed because it got turned into marijuana. Crazy story, isn't it? But
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of awesome products. And so it's starting to make a comeback, right? Texas is, their stance on marijuana is interesting. I'm not going to get into that, but it's interesting compared to some of the other states. I'm not saying which one's right or wrong, but I think there is definitely, it's a plant. I always tell people it's like, I like plants, right? I'm not saying you got to smoke it, drink it, whatever. I like plants. And I like soil a whole lot, but that hemp is a very interesting product to me. And I'd like to learn more, but I will learn more about it and I will start using it, but not that way. But I will start using it as far as just a good product, and it's crazy how one person or one industry can kind of ruin a product that probably could have advanced us in many other ways, And so that's why I was wondering, I was hoping to hear that you might, you dabble in that in the future and start using that, and it'd be kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
I don't know, did you know that story by chance?
I had not heard that story. It's funny because it sounds exactly like what someone would do, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But I have heard many, many things beyond the small amount that I understand about hemp, and just the versatility of that plant.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating, and that's, if there's, from the perspective, that I'm coming from, if there's a drink that we can put out that is either interesting or beneficial or, helpful in some way, then at least we're afforded the opportunity to look at it.
Right.
We have a research and development team that is allowed to spend the money to find out whether or not it's something that we even want to look at. Mm-hmm. And so from that perspective, that's something that I'm excited about just because it's on the cusp of becoming a real category anyway. The THC-based stuff is a massive category already. Even now, it's an $8 billion revenue stream for Texas.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
So we don't want to say no is essentially, where I'm headed with that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's been interesting because I always wonder, the story about the guy that wanted to sell trees and paper and stuff like that. So it kind of put a hurting on hemp. And I wonder if that's also true with alcohol and marijuana, because you're seeing people move from one to the other. So is that the same thing where they're trying to stop one because they want to sell the other? I don't know. I don't have any proof of that. I can't say that's true, but it's just all very interesting where I think at the end of the day, let people make their own choice and let them make choices and give them the opportunities, and don't hold one back just because one wants to make money. I realize I'm very proud that we're a capitalistic society. I love America. I love this country. I love the way we run things for the most part. There's some mistakes here and there, but I think it's one of those things where why hold back something, right, to kind of, just to kind of, blossom another thing. So what else do you want to say? I know we're kind of getting close to an hour here, a little over an hour. So what else do you want to say about 3 Wide Brewery before we go today?
The thing that I'd like for people to know about 3 Wide is that, we don't make any compromises, and we, have as much fun as we work hard, right? We play as hard as we work. Hopefully that rubs off. There's a ton of interesting stuff coming up. hopefully we won't have to wait too long on the spirit side, and I'm hoping that our fans will give me a little bit of grace on the amount of time it takes to put together a great bourbon or a great rye. It'll be a couple more years yet, but I promise it's coming.
Yeah.
Other than that, without sounding like a big pitch, I'm just thrilled that we actually got to connect through a lawn service that you provide, and then somehow it turns into talking about regenerative farming. That's pretty cool. I think it's really neat if people keep their eyes and their ears open for opportunities like this. I would have never thought that I'd be sitting here talking to you about regenerative farming and non-GMO grain just because I use a service that I really appreciate. I did the testimonial because my lawn is looking great, right?
Yep.
And then here we are now. So it's pretty cool.
It's pretty neat how it all works out. The reason that we had you here is honestly your passion. That's why we had you here. And I will tell, if anyone wants to go to that, you should at least try 3 Wide. Go. I don't care if you don't drink. Then go have a burger. Go have some of their food. But the reason you're here is your passion. Because Aime and John came back to me and said, "Hey, we got to talk to this guy. He's in a brewery." I'm like, "Well, what does a brewery have to do with lawn or anything we do?" Because I got to make the connection. And then they told me more about how kind of your selection and who you are. And I'm like, I definitely want to meet this guy. And then we go out there, and the passion was throughout everybody there. Like everybody there was happy to be there, excited. And I think, I know I'm weird, I'm not a brewer, but I think that has everything to do with the flavor, and it has everything to do with how things taste. And like you even brought up aroma earlier. A lot of our taste is in our nose, right? And so I think there's just the passion you have should be applauded. I hope the owners know just how good of a person they have in you and in that brewery, and to hear that someone's that excited about their job, their life, it affects everything. I think it affects the flavor, it affects the service. Everything is good. So good on you for doing things right, and thanks for coming in today. I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate that. The whole crew is fantastic, and I'm certainly not the one that deserves all the praise for sure. If I wouldn't be here without the rest of my crew too. So I want to make sure that all of those guys are recognized as well.
Very good. Thanks for being here today.
Yep. Thank you.
You bet.